Nicholas. Nicholas.
Calling Nicholas. Tyson.
That's from when I was a kid. I saw a movie, and I can't remember if it was a Vincent Price movie, horror movie, and I don't know if it was The Pit and the Pendulum or House of Usher or Fall of the House of Usher. It was one of those ones. And it's the one where he buried his wife in the wall alive, kind of thing. She comes back, and he's like walking along with his candle, and he's shaking, he's dropping the candle, and her voice is like the ghost going, Nicholas. Nicholas scared the shit out of me.
Well, here I am.
I still wake up nightmares from that. I can't believe the things they let us watch when we were kids in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, I was scared.
Daytime TV. It's just like, give us some sexual violence after play school. Let's go.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
It's just horrors.
I was terrified. I was terrified of the Wicked Witch of the West, who because there were shoes at the bottom of my wardrobe, and there was this picture of the Wicked Witch of the West with these two shoes poking out of the wardrobe or the house. And I thought, fuck, I think that she might be right under there.
That was a scary bit. I wasn't scared of her as a character, but it's like I was scared of, they just killed that woman.
Yeah.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
All the other kids were scared of the flying monkeys.
Yeah. That was very scary. Harpies.
I've been like, I want to get one of them monkeys. Yeah. Well, look, this just, I guess, fear is running rampant in the world. It's probably motivating just the most horrendous things right now. I think it's probably the underlying, cause of pretty much any problem that we're going to discuss today. It's probably grounded in fear at some stage. Like everybody's terrified and behaving in some very weird ways, Nicholas.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether they're terrified because you need some imagination to be scared of things. Like I should be scared. Well, I should be scared of the war in Ukraine that's cranking up or not cranking up. I should be scared.
They're too stupid to be scared.
Well, I'm too stupid to be scared too, because I should be scared that it could turn nuclear, but I just can't. I look out there, can't see a nuclear war. Should be okay. You know what I mean?
For me, it's different. I can't have an opinion on it because my brain was ruined from I thought because there was so much propaganda on one side years ago, and so I experimented with Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I did inhale.
Oh, well, there you are. Yeah. Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's it.
I got myself some Russian propaganda, and it's like, Ukraine is. It means the name of Ukraine means Russian border. That's what it means, And I'm like, well, yeah, fair enough. And I kind of I find myself, because bad propaganda and bad faith stuff on the other side doesn't balance out bad faith stuff on this side. You know what I mean?
I do. I know exactly what you mean.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
It just makes a big freaking mess in your head. Yeah. Now I don't know what to think.
No, that's exactly my position. I remember when this Ukraine stuff was cranked up. In fact, having done some reading about it, it was cranked up in 2014 as a big thing. And I remember sort of all of the press were full of this stuff about Russia's aggression, Putin's corruption, and so on. And I sort of took it all in, and I wasn't reading about it at the time. I thought, fair enough. And then, fair enough as in, well, maybe that's right, maybe it's not, I don't know, but it didn't really strike me. And then, I don't know, a year or so later, I read this thing saying, well, the Russians are very concerned about having some neutral space between them and a buffer zone between them and their traditional enemies in NATO.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, why didn't I hear that from the press when they were just writing up these stories?
Well, maybe if Gorbachev wasn't spending so much time just getting drunk off his nana and dancing, nearly falling off the stage, maybe he would have gotten to write something down instead of doing a freaking handshake deal. Oh, yes, NATO won't move. Not 1 inch. We'll bring this wall down. Not 1 inch will we move. So that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Shake hands, finish. Get something in writing.
Yeah, well, and then, well, they got got Czechoslovakia in writing in 1938 at Munich. That didn't do a lot of good. So it's a tough old world.
Well, and I try to like find so poor old Ukrainians, and so I'm looking at it, and it looks like they were basically born out of fascism anyway, and they got a lot of troubles with the fascist stuff, but it's hard to know what's interference, what's like what's just a psyop and what's not. It's just I don't know. It sounds like just I can't get any good information on that.
I shall have to try and interest you.
Trust.
I'll have to try and interest you in a guy I've been reading quite a lot of, a guy called James Burnham, who was quite a right-wing conservative and a very interesting guy. And just because you don't end up with his conclusions doesn't mean that you won't find his reasoning very, very powerful. So anyway, I'll park that for another occasion.
Yeah. Well, and I'll park my complaint that right-wing conservatives are tautology.
Well, conservative is a terrible word because it means so many different things. I mean,
no, it really does. I mean, it once meant that you don't want to just throw every tradition out the window, and you'd like change to be slow and considered. Yeah, which sounds awesome to me. Yeah, but that's not what it means anymore. It's absolute, just radical insanity. Yeah. God, I've just got junk in my head. I got junk in my head. So I've got Joe Biden is paying black people to smoke crack, kind of thing. And it's like, well, okay. Part of something that went through is that, addicts would get, black addicts, just addicts would get sterilization kits, which they said, no, don't provide them with crack pipes. And then it's like, well, that means, he's paying black people to smoke. What the hell, man? They just jump on anything. Yeah. And it's just there are no facts. There's like this quantum soup of data with no narrative through line that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, there's no facts, but there's also no word now in politics, no descriptive word in politics that's very descriptive of anything in particular. Left, right, conservative, liberal, they just mean all kinds of different things. And basically, in fact, a nice turn of phrase from a guy called Freddie de Boer, who I follow on Substack. I'll read you the thing. Children in black hoodies who wave the anarchist flag fight for the government and its right to override individual choice. They don't do so because of how they have passed Bakunin or Kropotkin. They never bothered to know what anarchism is or means in the first place. Why would they? Politics is only who you sneer at and who sneers at you. Too right.
Jesus. They don't make anarchists like they used to. No, they don't make militias either. Like,
No, well,
how useless are all these militias in the States?
I'm not so sure they don't.
Really,
but we'll see.
Really got no discipline at all. I think they probably can't.
We will see. We will see what
pounds.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so maybe maybe the Ukraine thing's going to get it done. It's I don't know. When was the last time you saw brinkmanship like that?
Well, I don't know how much brinkmanship is going on. My guess, based on the small amount of reading, I know one should take what I'm saying very seriously, but my guess is that it's a bit of a stunt, and there'll be there can be some skirmishing and some fighting, but that Putin is smart enough to know that if he invades Ukraine, it's like invading Afghanistan. It's not it's not ultimately in his interests. But who knows? But I don't have a very sunny disposition about where the world's going. But on that particular thing, that can easily be much more of a stunt than, or not a stunt. That's the wrong word, but a piece of grand brinkmanship ultimately compared with a major invasion.
Well, usually when you see see theatre like that, there's some other stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, that's true too.
That we're missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we missing? You just sent me this smorgasbord of stuff.
That's my weekly newsletter.
So hang on, is that a Substack?
Yeah.
You're doing that Substack.
Well,
here I was saying to you, Nicholas, you should get on that Substack.
Yeah. Well, I only went to Substack. I only went to Substack because MailChimp wanted to start charging me because I had more than 1,000 subscribers. And I thought, well, I'm just, this is just automating an email. So anyway, what I did is I've just started a Substack, which is just a weekly email of stuff I've read and some often bit of brief commentary on it. And I'm kind of enjoying doing it. And then I will, when I've got stuff to write, why wouldn't I send that out? I also blog at Club Troppo, and I'll keep doing that. So that's my current one of, those are two of my current channels. There's a few others.
Well, I mean, do you feel like that's do you feel like it's a good turn for the media ecosystem? Particularly in terms of
Substack.
Yeah,
I do.
Journalism, like it's good for the journalists who of quality and have a following. Cuts out the middleman, all the rest.
Yep.
And it's potentially very democratic. But at the same time, I don't know, to paraphrase you from earlier, people are idiots. So I mean,
not me. I'm not saying that.
Some people are like, too stupid to be afraid, kind of thing. I think was.
I see. Well, I included myself in that.
I mean, there's a lot of people who are too stupid to be afraid.
Yeah. Whenever you'll find when I talk about people being stupid, I'm usually including myself among stupid.
So is this more just directly getting people, well,
it's ultimately
arranging their own information, like
it's ultimately
their diet of sense making and going, yep, well, these are the people I'm following, and does that reinforce and entrench further division and stupid debate?
Well, you're being impatient to get to the conclusion. I'll only take it so far, which is to say Substack is capitalist media. I don't say that as a swear word or anything like that. It is a group of people who are making a return on capital by presenting a particular way to interact with the internet. And I think it's a kind of a terrific thing in a bunch of ways. And it will it's got some nasty characteristics. And the one that is most disturbing, and it's actually, the thing that's most disturbing is the winner take all story. And it's not winner take all, but it's winner take a great deal, which is that you get out there and you get after ratings and you get after sales, and ultimately that breaks if you ask yourself what should be the relationship between a person claiming to have thought about something and the people they want to tell them about, their audience, the people that they're telling, should this be the same kind of relation as somebody trying to sell as many rolls of bread as they can, as many cars as they can? And I think the answer is no, there's more to it than that. But we don't have, and cultures have developed relationships between writers and readers that are fairly different to that. But then but they were all highly elitist. And democracy and capitalism are not elitist. That's a strength. It's also, we're also seeing some of the downsides of it. So So Substack partakes of that vice. There's no doubt about that.
Right, so it's a hell of an entrepreneurial coup.
Yeah, I think so.
They didn't have to invest anything in innovating any new tech. They just repurposed some old tech.
Yeah. Well, most money is made. Look at Bill Gates and lots of these people. They don't start out with incredible new tech. They start with oldish tech, and then they come up with a particularly clever way to exploit it, but also to generate value for people. Otherwise, they're not going to come around.
Too deadly. Now I get to be Sleepless in Seattle with Nicholas on Substack.
Well, we are doing it ourselves. We are taking advantage of one of these technologies, Tyson. This is called Zoom, which is copying Skype, which was, which wasn't all that innovative, but it was clever at the time, and it was way ahead of its time, and it didn't work for a long time because we didn't have broadband.
Let's do a startup. Let's do a startup where we just fax like pamphlets to people.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I think people would be into that.
I remember at the very beginning of faxes working as a staffer for a parliamentarian, and in fact, I think I was just volunteering because Gough Whitlam was still around, and I don't think I saw this particular thing, but there was this amazing new technology, and it was called faxing, and you typed something out because there weren't word processors either, so usually the secretary typed something out in orator typeface, and then because it was going to be a she, put it on the fax. And the fax was a round thing that started spinning the page and then ran a reader up the page and then sent this signal over the phone lines. So this is the 70s. So that was how it was done then. Another little fun fact for you: guess which was invented first, the phone or the fax? Well, because it's a fun fact, you'll be able to guess that it was the fax. The fax was invented in not that long after the telegraph. And it was an easier problem to solve than the telephone, which involved taking a voice and turning it into a signal and then converting it back into a voice.
That's mad. All right. So I've got heaps of ideas now. I got heaps of ideas for us.
Heaps of entrepreneurial ideas.
We're gonna have a startup, Nicholas. All right. So we're gonna do a augmented reality game, but you do it with pages, like pagers. Yeah. So let's get a bunch of old pages and sort of repurpose them, and people can get sent messages and say, "Go to this place now." There's a freaking Pokemon there.
Sounds good.
Just imagine shooting it or something. Yeah, so we're going to do that. Maybe we do something with wax cylinders. Spotify, but with wax cylinders for recordings.
Well, you'll have to contact Joe Rogan.
Oh, God.
He'll sell them for
everybody has to talk about Joe Rogan.
I'm happy not to.
Yeah. I don't know. If we end up talking about like Gavin apologies or something, then we might be able to use that as an example or something. But yeah, I think that might be one of those bits of theatre right now. We don't want the theatre.
Yeah.
We don't want the theatre, Nicholas. We want our augmented reality with pages. So, man, I loved your bit on Mal Meninga.
Yep.
I never knew about that.
You didn't know that story?
So yeah, Mal Meninga. Aboriginal footballing legend. I didn't even know about his 30-second
political career.
But I tell you, yeah, I just have a new respect for him.
Absolutely. That's right.
And how much integrity is that? You're 30 seconds in your first radio interview and it's just like, nah, I'm bugging.
This is bullshit.
Walks out. This is stupid.
So I'll play it. I'll share my screen with you and I'll play it for people if you want to do that.
Yeah. Actually, I got it here too.
What's that? Oh, well, do you want to admit? I don't know.
I don't know if it comes across, but let's just talk over it so it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to share my screen. Are you good with that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'll play it from the relevant point.
Career. It was his first radio interview as a politician. Seemed to be going okay. And then something happened.
Why are you standing? A number of reasons. I guess throughout my sporting career, I've had the urge to do community work, and I think I've really worked hard on that aspect. My 16 years in Canberra, and the thing
Tick,
about
tick,
that is
tick.
I was, I guess, a
Yeah.
public figure, and I was put on it as on the podium where I was just a person out there, but making sure that I was I'm bugging. So Mal Meninga is leaving the studio. He says that he can't
That's
do
the
it.
best. That's the best thing I've ever seen.
Isn't it just, I mean,
he's just like, all right, yeah, so I got to do
Yeah.
this political career now. If I had a tenth of his money, like I would do exactly the same thing right now. I'd say, Nicholas, I'm buggered.
yeah, see you later.
And I just go.
Well,
You never see me again.
watching that reminds me of another thing that I sometimes refer to, because it was a Monty Python sketch in which the two characters in the sketch, they look at each other and they say, this sketch has got too silly. And then the other one says, well, why don't we end it then? And the other one says, yes. And then the screen goes black.
That's it.
And there are
That's
so many, like, ethics committee, okay? That's what should happen in every ethics committee I've ever heard of. People should just say, sorry, this is obvious. Like, I'm not quite sure why, but right now, this whole exercise is so farcical. We really, if we have any integrity at all, we have to stop and think about what the hell it is we're doing and try and do something a little more useful to someone than that. So the world is full of these moments, I think.
Well, maybe we need a virtues committee or something.
A virtues committee. It doesn't sound promising, does it? So tell me, let me tell you why that came to my mind, because anyone who's seen me talk on on these sessions before will know that I'm a big fan of the idea of citizen juries, of this other way to represent the people, which is not elections, it's not competitive, it's neither elections nor appointments, but just as we do it in a jury, we just get a sample of people from the community and say, you help us decide this thing. And I was contacted by a guy, his name's Lucas, from Ohio, and he contacted me over Twitter, because I've made a big song and dance about this stuff on Twitter. And he said, I'm trying to promote this idea in Ohio. And so we got to talking pretty quickly. I had a long chat with him, and he told me that he had previously thought of running for the state legislature, and sitting at his table, at his kitchen table with his wife, they went into precisely the sort of thing we just saw Mal Meninga do, why I'm so great, why you should vote for me and everybody else is full of shit. And well, then I think his wife said to him, look, you're full of shit. And he felt, this is not me. This is not what there are a whole bunch of things I want to do, that I want to get into the political system because I'm unhappy with the way things are, but this way I've got to get into it is just false and horrible. And then I suddenly realized this video that this event that happened in 2001, just after September 11, actually, about 20 days after September 11, this event is just emblematic of what's so terrible about our democracy, which is we say it's a democracy. And by the way, if you're somebody like Mal Meninga, half caste, as they used to be called, Pacific Islander father, white Australian mother, out in the sticks, not a great education, and a person with shame, a person with a kind of community sense, that you don't big note yourself, that you don't say you're better than other people. That's a judgment for other people to make, not for you to just big mouth yourself. Well, we've got a big gate on our democracy saying, if you can't stomach that, you're not welcome in our democratic system. You can vote, but you're not welcome as a politician, as a political operative, because everything the political system does is directed as single-mindedly as KFC is behavior is directed to getting you to go into their stores and buy their chicken. It's single-mindedly directed to that. And that's poison. And we can see that now. And we've got to do something about it.
Man, I used to see him back in the day. I went like for a little while, like when I was like 17, 18, late teens. I was in Brisbane for undergrad. I didn't spend much time there because I just used to write the essays and then take off. And when I was there, like I didn't know where I was going to be staying, and was kind of homeless and sleeping in the park at New Farm quite a bit.
Nice play. If you have to sleep in the park, it's not a bit that's
where
the best place.
where all the blackfellas were staying at the time, and it was just before Fortitude Valley got gentrified, so it was like
Right.
that was just like the hostel, that's where you go,
Yeah.
and good time there too, until the police got real nasty when they were gentrifying the valley, and they'd like
That's
pick
right.
you up and handcuff you, and then they'd drop you out of Bow Desert, and you'd have to walk back. It was poxy. I did do that a few times. I thought, I better get a job. So I got sick of writing my essays under street lights for uni. But so I was there, and I got a job picking up glasses in a nightclub. It was in Paddington, so it was near where that State of Origin would happen there, Lang Park.
Yeah.
And so all that after their games, all that mob used to come through in there, and do the things that those kind of people do in places like that in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. And I don't know. So I never had that much of a good impression about them.
No. Well,
those fellas, but
look, they're well,
I nearly got in a fight with Peter Jackson one night. It was
probably good that you didn't.
It was very close. He probably would have beaten the crap out of me.
Yeah, exactly.
I reckon I'd have surprised him. He like tried to tackle me or something. I'd drop him. But and all the bouncers, like these are the people I work with. They grabbed me and threw me out. It's like, oh, come on. Anyway, I just always had a bad feeling about those fellas. Like, they're terrible people or whatever. Anyway, you sent me that clip, and I saw Mal Meninga, and I was just like, that fella, he's got some integrity. I tell you.
Absolutely. And people do, and people can be, you can be, you can want to fight people and still have a lot of, just have some. You don't have to even like anything about them, but then you're reminded they're just a person like you are, and they're full of shit. And I won't say like you are, Tyson, but like I am. And they're just making their way. They're just making their way. They're just,
in there.
They're doing their best.
Russian disinformation and Gaddafi nostalgia. It's all there.
Gaddafi nostalgia. Yeah, well, these are ideological crimes, Tyson. They're not the worst. They're only ideological crimes are really only a big deal if you've got a lot of power. Otherwise, they're just a bit of frou-frou, just a bit of window.
They are a big deal if you know better, Nicholas, and then you still persist. That's the thing with like half the discourse you see. Like you look at the people and they know better, and they're just lying and doing all this theater.
I've got this. You could say it's a Pollyanna streak. I don't think it is, but I just think that almost everyone sort of a lot of it is self-deception. I certainly don't want to deny that, and I spend a lot of my time trying to anatomize that. But most people do what they do believing that they've got a little voice often in their ear that was the one that Mal Meninga actually responded to. They've got that voice. I'm not suggesting that, but they've also got things telling them that what they're doing is pretty reasonable, or that if they're being a bit unreasonable, this bastard has just done that to them, and that's a terrible thing to do, and so on it goes, and so on it goes. So it's sort of important. To just sort of, and I'm much better at giving this as a lecture than living by it often, especially in the heat of the moment. But basically, most people are pretty much doing their best, and sort of like psychotherapy. I think of this, often people are just very, like how hard it is to speak to people about something you think, something when you're getting close to this line, well, this is what you always do, or you would say that, wouldn't you? And often it's, once you got to that stage, there's a good sign you won't get anywhere because you've run into resistance. But if you are going to get further, it's probably not by giving some person a lecture that makes you feel self-righteous. It's probably by some gesture of generosity. And again, as I genuinely mean this, I'm good at this at the theoretical level. I'm as bad as anyone at actually being generous at that time, and that's for quite complicated reasons. So we should be very sympathetic to each other, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Look, that's my default position, but then also at the same time, if you I don't know, step back. Just bloody step back a bit. I don't know, if you know you're stupid and you're doing the wrong thing in a situation, and I do this all the time. Like, I'm not going to keep asserting it just for the principle of winning and having my voice up front. It's like, no, I'll shut up and step back. I actually am not the best informed person in this situation. I'm going to step back and ask someone else.
But just take the fact. So let me make two assertions to you. I think Donald Trump is a gangster-style, bad as they come guy. I mean, you can also tell stories like his daughter. Is it his daughter, Mary Trump? No, not his daughter. It's a cousin of his. Sister of him,
did the biography.
Mary.
Yeah.
So she can see Donald as a little boy who always had to please his father. So she can have some sympathy for him, but that's really not the point with him. He's a gangster style guy. That guy is super bad news, and everything about reality is rearranged to satisfy his ego needs. So you couldn't do worse than that. And that's fact one. Well, it's not fact, it's an assertion of mine, an opinion of mine. Fact two is that 45% of the voting American public think this guy's pretty good. Now, I have to accept that, and I have to think my way through that, and I have to engage with those people, but I don't have any trouble thinking that they're pretty decent people. I think that they're, A, making a grave mistake, and B, committing all sort of sins, if you like. They're doing the wrong thing, but in quite a subtle way. But so what? I'm not going to get self-righteous about them because they're good people. They're the same kind of people that built one of the greatest countries the world has ever seen. And it's sick. It's a sick play. This is sick if 45% of people are rusted on to a crook like that, a terrible person like that. And there are lots of valuable things we can take from that. We can say, how could it have come to this? What's wrong with the structures that we have in the way we build politics to get there? I wrote a blog post about how slavery in the United States seems to have sent the southern states into a kind of a state of psychosis that they've never got over. It's slavery. That slavery is defended even before the Civil War with terrorism. So Jesse James starts out life out there actually assassinating people who are and now we have to pussyfoot around with our words according to the ideological structures of our time, and they are the N-word lovers. Okay, that was the South. That was the psychosis that was really kind of running hot and strong in the South. Until maybe the civil rights movement. There's still plenty of it there. So you can tell lots of interesting stories about how we ended up that way. But anyway, the rest of the world is showing some alarming signs that this isn't these issues are not irrelevant for them. So there we are.
Well, I mean, the whole division there politically, North and South, East Coast, West Coast, all that kind of thing. but not as much about geography as anything else. You know, because it was too freaking cold and the soil was no good in the north to do all the primary production. So that happened in the south, and you know, and then I guess the north was just involved with value adding and, you know, the professions. So yeah, you're going to end up with some class resentments and stuff building there, and some
Well,
weird stuff going on.
There's a fascinating book, and it was by an economist written in 1860, just before the American Civil War, by an Irish economist called J.E. Cairns, and it's a fascinating book because it's not really about economics. He looks at the economy of the South, and he can see that what's happening is that you have oligarchic money, which is basically in a competition to capture slaves, and by capture I don't mean go and catch them physically, but to generate the surpluses to employ more slaves. And the white working class, he writes this book called The Slave Power, and what he shows, or what he argues, is that with this source of super cheap labor, that the unskilled white workers are going to basically end up sitting on their porch, cleaning their guns, becoming more and more resentful, and that's really pretty much that was the political economy of the South. Oligarchy, the rich controlling everything, and then this very ignorant, poor white working class. I always thought the term poor white trash was an expression from the 1950s. It predates the Civil War. That was the problem. So you have a kind of this is the same structure as the Roman Republic in its later days, where you have a small, extremely wealthy class and a desperate proletarian class.
Well, with federation, like one of the biggest domestic threats that was seen was the yeoman farmer. You know, you couldn't have these yeoman farmers there being like self-sufficient, you know, out in the landscape, dotted all over the shop. You needed to have everyone dependent on the system, so it was really important to shut down all that sovereignty and grab those lands, and you ended up with entire regions that became, you know, country cousins, or flyover states, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we don't know about America. Like, let's leave that to them. Although, you know, I don't know. I think they're a good case study, and I think they're a good cautionary tale, particularly. You know, I was looking at, especially, I was looking at this work by, I was looking at these ladies, Melanie Moses and Kathy Powers, and that they were doing some complex modeling work with COVID stuff. And one of the things they were talking about, one of the papers they did last year, was they were trying to figure out why the modeling wasn't working for the pandemic spread. That every time, you know, the predictive modeling wasn't working. And it was like, well, here, we've got everything mapped out in this system. We've got every person represented, you know, in here as a node. And, you know, and people move in these ways and they do all these things. And we've got all the averages sorted out. All the values are there. How come this isn't accurately able to predict, you know, the spread, how it's going? And these ladies looked at it and said, well, you haven't factored racism into your algorithm there. You know, there's structural racism here. There are zoning restrictions. There's policing that inhibits and facilitates different kinds of movement in different neighborhoods. You've also got a lot of informal segregation and all kinds of stuff going on. So you know, people aren't interacting in these ways. You've got very dense areas of interaction where people can't move out of that area, and then you've got, you know, it's not just everybody moving around equally. You're modeling it on these, you know, these white neighborhoods, and you're assuming everyone's living like that. And so they factored in racism into the algorithm, She worked like a treat.
Oh, well, there you go.
Suddenly they were able to predict it, and I don't know, that just made me laugh because I sort of imagined it saying to somebody, some sort of spitting red-faced bigot, like, just love to turn that one line back on them, that the facts don't care about your feelings. The data doesn't. They're always like, the facts don't care about your feelings.
Well,
when
Paul
they're
Krugman,
cherry picking somebody's stat that sort of goes, see, they're less intelligent or whatever. It's like, oh my god. Anyway, but see, that would just be engaging in all the same thing, and I do try and avoid that. Like, even if I think of something really clever, I try not to deploy it, Nicholas.
Yeah, well, I'm just quiet here.
Now, yeah. So I mean, where to go? It's next. It's such a. I think we'll just. I don't know. I want to maybe we'll finish up the disinformation piece, and maybe it'll sort of. Maybe that'll lead into a bit of. I wouldn't mind having a look at your thermonuclear part, which is not actually about nuclear WMDs. That's a metaphor.
It is a metaphor.
And anyway, we'll segue into that if you like.
Yeah,
I just think that there's this little bit.
You want to live
over.
You want to live dangerously.
Yeah, well, let's just allow. Well, maybe
you're the one.
Not.
You're the one who's told me, Tyson, that this is living dangerously for you. Maybe I'll discover it's living dangerously for me. But
well,
so far the mob
if you make a really terrible mistake and you say something awful.
Yeah.
The
well,
worst thing that's going to happen to you is that your Substack will increase by about
explode. That's
overnight,
right. I'll be able to make money out of it if I.
That'll be the worst thing you do. So I don't know. Line up a couple of zingers. You don't have to mean them. That's how politics works now. You just say something freaking awful. Yeah. And then you double down on it, and then you say 8 more awful things, and
or you say something nice, and someone edits out the word "not" and says that you did something horrible.
Couple of dog whistles in there. Anyway, that's one of them. But we're going to get to that.
Yeah,
dog whistles, one of the WMDs.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's good, actually. Words of mass destruction. Of mass distraction. There you are.
I think someone's already done that.
Yeah,
but anyway, like that could be our sort of Substack sort of like startup where we're repurposing some old shit in a new way. We'll see how we go. We're going to make this money soon. Nicholas, all I need is a house. I don't have to have Meninga money. I'd be happy with I just need a house. I'd like to be able to have a house one day. If I got a house, all right. I'm not doing any more of this work. Finish.
I know. Well, that's we should.
You want to talk to me? Then you come around and just sit on my porch.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll sit down and have a hot toddy and look out over the field. All right. I'm not going to own a house. All right. I'm going to read this snippet to you.
Okay.
Okay. So this is like I'm still this book is like, oh God, gestation periods is just awful. But anyway, I'll read you a bit.
Yeah. So you're reading me the passage from your book. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Just because I think it's a good segue from that one thing from disinformation on, and we can wrap up the disinfo and then go on to the WMDs. So, we're not immune to disinformation here. Every week, another elder gets radicalized by some bizarre US cult. My friend Tina Ngate in New Zealand says they have the same problem over there with an epidemic of Maori mugger sweeping through their communities. We're just as nuts as everyone else right now, which is something you need to know in case you've come into this yarn seeking a bit of imperial nostalgia through feel-good indigenous wisdom. You're not going to find your way through this mess in drum circles and sweat lodges, those weird co-opted bits and pieces of native culture that enable spiritual bypass, chanting and vision questing and tripping balls to avoid the hard feelings that come with being authentically grounded in your shitty context. We have to look past the sexy and inspiring stuff and step up to our fear and uncertainty. My native Alaskan friend Arlo Davis keeps telling me, don't drink the Kool-Aid, bruh. Don't drink your own. Best advice I ever got. T-shirts and other bits of empowering merchandise tell us that the future is female, the future is indigenous. Maybe it'll be both when all the old white dudes retreat to their underground bunkers or blast themselves out into space. Maybe the meek will indeed inherit the earth for a while in order to clean it up for the Master's glorious return for a new golden age of priests and kings. But in the meantime, they still own everything and still have most of the global power needed to make some urgent adjustments. That's why I'm talking so much to people of the pale, male, and stale variety here. It would be silly to exclude the people who run the world from the process of changing it just to make ourselves feel better. Their system, everything from time measurement to banking, is the default system for every community on the planet. They own the fucking rails. The idea that I could be giving them a platform, or even that somebody might deny them a platform, is ridiculous. They own everything. They own us. If I'm trying to find my keys, I'll start with the guy who keeps taking my vehicle without asking. I won't ask his sister. So yeah, I'm talking to a lot of old white fellas here. Even though I'm wearing a Future is Female t-shirt and a Future is Indigenous hoodie, the future will probably be quite a bit of both of those things, but the present and the short-term future is neither of them. Short-term, the future is evaluation. Most of us are becoming irrelevant as workers, and we sure as hell won't be getting our food and shelter for free. So we'll be earning our universal basic incomes in digital tokens for evaluating things online. The educator will be peer reviewing papers and critiquing art, while the undereducated will be rating donuts, TV, and medications in exchange for crypto coupons and merch with empowering messages, assuring us all that whatever demographic group we identify with will soon be great again.
Bloody fantastic.
I thought I knew you'd like that last paragraph there.
I like it all. I like it all.
I think the future is evaluation in terms of worlds of work. I think that's what we're all going to be doing.
Yeah, well, I'm not. When people ask, I sometimes get described as a futurist, and I describe myself as a pastist. And what I mean by that, is that there's even calling oneself a futurist, talking about, we all have an itch. We talk about what bloody football team's going to win on Saturday, and all we have to do is wait 2 days and we'll find out. So we've got a fascination with how the future will turn out, and then we can build our little pathetic little social status mechanism around the person who can sound cleverest, the precise trick, the precise competition that Mal Meninga said, I'm out of here. That's not the sort of thing I want to do. Whereas I'm a pastist in the sense that there are deep things. We've been here before. We've never been exactly here before, but there are things that are going on in our democracy, in our society, which are remarkably like the things that went on in ancient Athens 2,500 years ago. The fact, the existence of Socrates running around basically trolling people. These are the escalation of public rhetoric. These are the features of a democracy. And so there are very powerful things that we can learn by sort of taking markers from history and realizing that our problems are deep within the human predicament and have recurred from time to time, and very powerful and very simple things have been said and done to address those issues.
Well, public rhetoric isn't, I don't know. It's a bit, I guess, growing up in the decades I grew up, you get that cultural cringe, being from this continent.
Well, I'm not saying
that
public
might be framing it,
bad.
But remember, like before we started recording, I don't know if I'm talking out of school here, but
breaking the fourth wall,
and breaking the bro code of podcasting. But you did mention something about Australian discourse.
I did. I said that Australians were the least publicly articulate of any English-speaking country. It may be that New Zealanders are right up there with us, but if you compare a speech given by a winner of Wimbledon, if they're Australian, it will. I mean, I can't think of any that have been shameful or terribly embarrassing, but they're very minimalist.
Yeah.
Cheers,
and thanks very much. Team effort was team effort.
Yeah, that's right. And they're very minimalist. And if you listen to an American, particularly an American, but Brits and various people, they've kind of been taught some basic structures. And an American, I mean, they're all over it. I mean, they're here. They are on their big stage, and they're going to have a really. And it doesn't even have to be rehearsed. They can speak for 3 minutes, incredibly eloquently, clearly, articulately. There it is. That's what I said, and now I'm saying it even on this side of the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm. And they're completely fearless. It seems to me. So like just the average arsehole on the street in the States, they just let it rip.
Yeah,
they'll just speak quite fluently, and there's a camera there. Oh, I'm going on TV. Great, here, boom, and they say it.
What I might do is, if I can find it quickly, there was really an incredible example of this by a guy. Here it is. I'll be able to get it. Why don't I play this to you? It might
pull that up, Jamie.
You just hang on. I will. Just hang on. Watch this. Here we are. Okay, we're rolling. It's about CRT, critical race theory. It's in Virginia, I think.
Oh, Jesus.
North Country,
don't hurt me.
North Carolina.
Hurt me, Nicholas.
What's that?
I said, don't hurt me.
Well, I'm thinking I might hurt you. I think I might hurt you. But I'll play it.
No, it's all right.
Of course, the guy. Yeah. Okay.
Go on.
Listen. This is eloquence.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Obviously, you guys give of yourselves to do what you're doing. The community, I think we recognize that now that the political juice has been sucked out of the mass distraction, that we have to move forward. And one of the things I wanted to thank you for tonight was the resolution, the non-discrimination resolution, the CRT deal, because it's happening. And as a parent, I speak to other parents. There's a few things that we don't want. I'm biracial, I'm bilingual, I'm multicultural. The fact is, in America, in North Carolina, I can do anything I want, and I teach that to my children. And the person who tells my little pecan-colored kids that they're somehow oppressed based on the color of their skin would be absolutely wrong and absolutely at war with me. And I think that's the same for every parent. What the mask showed us is that the parents, the most powerful group of people in our country, that they're taking back the wheel. Now, obviously, we had to take the wheel back for the mask, but we're taking the wheel back from Washington all the way to Raleigh and into our local school board. Because CRT, all of that, the parents don't want it. It's a big fat lie. There's not one belief. If you believe in CRT, I want to tell you you're a liar, because that means you look at your black neighbor and say that they're oppressed, and you look at your white neighbor and say that they're evil, regardless of the experience.
All right, stop.
Okay.
We're not going to do that.
It's just, I know that's awesome. That's a black guy saying that. And it's like, well, see, that's what my black friend thinks. You know what I mean? But this is the problem with people who have no shame. That you can just step up and, you're a great speaker. You can just you step up and do really good rhetoric on anything without even knowing what it is. Because none of that describes what critical race theory actually is. Most of the people who are talking about it, they don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, that's true.
There is a focus on this idea that it's like, it's the same with the that idea that keeps coming up in objections to wokeness. It's like, the objection is, it just like it takes certain groups of people and it says that they are evil and flawed and they are irredeemable and that they can't change, and it's just like, so, and that's supposed to be about, cancel culture, the whole discourse. It's obviously talking about, so either women, so it's either talking about gender or race or both, you know, and it's just, that's such a small part of the field of discourse, you know, although exactly the same tactics that are being used by the right and the left, it's obviously not talking about that. It's obviously just talking about the more left side of race and gender and nothing else. And continuing to snowball this stupid lie about critical race theory, and that it's about, you know, the individual, and that you're marked as an individual, and that you're flawed as an individual, and that individually in our neighborhoods, you know, we have this attitude towards each other. That's not what critical race theory is about. It's about the structural racism that I talked about before, the stuff that's invisible because it's too bloody big, the stuff that your COVID modeling for pandemic spread can't work unless you factor it in. So I'm sorry, my brother, there, but the facts don't care about the facts don't care about your feelings. The fact is, structural racism is there, and critical race theory was a tool that was developed to try and be able to articulate it and work with that specifically within the legal system. You know, so it was a legal theory that was looking at being able to track and measure these things in ways that would be better for everybody within the legal system, because you don't have an accurate picture of the world and of criminology and of everything else, and so therefore you can't make useful policy unless you factor that into your algorithm, because it's part of the structure of the system. Everybody immediately got butthurt and starts taking it personally, like, you know. And then, you know, yes, great. You can find a few SJWs on the left who are going to like be pushing this idea of, you know, oh, I'm white, so I'm evil. And I recognize that I'm evil and I'm sorry, kind of thing, you know, to my core. And that will never change. I'm always going to be evil because that's the color of my, I mean, yeah, you're going to get some idiots, you know, and unfortunately there's a lot of articulate idiots, and a lot of stupid stuff spreading around. And so, you know, here's where I hesitate with this idea that you're just going to randomly select people for your Magna Carta jury system to make democracy work, and that those 12 good men are somehow going to bloody come up with something useful. It's like, nah. I will actually want to find people who, you know, you are elevating them to some position of authority and influence based on the fact that they actually know something and they have a good track record of knowing things and of applying good theories and good analytical tools to find the best way forward. I don't know, that would be my preference, just culturally.
Good. Well, you tell me how to do it.
Well, how are you gonna do your jury system?
Well, what I would do is, I mean, firstly,
because I just piggyback off that. So however you were going to get that rolling,
yeah,
I would like to do the first half of that, and then piggyback.
Well, good. Okay. Well, I'm happy to do that.
And some actual smart people on those juries who, you know.
Oh, well, hang on. We don't agree about smart people,
decent track record of actually making some decent decisions that work in the world. I'd go with that.
Yeah. So, the first thing I have to say about juries is that juries are a way of delivering democracy which is very different to the way we deliver it now. We also know, on the question of racism, that juries in the South, especially if they're made of white men, but also white women, I suspect, at a certain time, I don't think it would be nearly so straightforward now, but it certainly was the case, that juries were a part of the oppression, the vicious oppression of Black people in the South, the massive sexual violence, the sexualized violence. There's a fantastic book, which I fully recommend to you and anyone else, about the civil rights struggle, which actually shows how sexualized Black oppression was, how sexualized Black liberation was, because of course, and how class-based it was. So this points out how much more active women were, Black women were, in the class struggles of the civil rights movement, how the credit always went to the men. But not only that, but Rosa Parks was a PR stunt. And that isn't to speak badly of Rosa Parks, but they had planned that for some years. And there were a number of people who...
Well, somebody already did it, but they just didn't like the
well, they
the
were... What's that?
There was somebody who did it before her.
Oh, well, not only that, but
thing,
there were other...
And that was what people, the grassroots, were mobilizing around. But it's like, no. She's not going to look good on the poster.
That's right. She's not going to... That's right. And she's not going to look good in the stand as well, because she's going to be cross-examined about her sexual history and all sorts of absolute shit.
Yeah. So that's where juries get you.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
I'm not going to get a jury of my peers, No.
So that's right. So
court. Yeah. Unless we have circle sentencing, which you might know about, and that's where, like in our communities, where they'll actually, instead of a jury, they have a permanent group of elders who decide what the sentencing is going to be, and that's working really, really well. It's you're finding the reoffending rates are right down, and the impact on the community is far less. So that would be along the model I was saying.
Yeah. Okay. So but this was by way of me. This was by way of me saying what do I think is good about juries, and me conceding that juries are a technology, and a technology can have good and bad features. My case for juries has been that we are watching in front of our very eyes the toxification of a whole political culture, which is driven by the optimization of professionals to manipulate people in various ways to ultimately get hold of their attention and their votes.
You did propose something in the Substack that would take care of the problem of jury selection, and that would make it more of a sort of liquid democracy kind of way of doing things. It was just something you mentioned briefly.
Yeah, well, this was in the... Yeah, that's right. So the thing about juries, the thing about random selection, is that it makes a fetish of, and it's good that it does, but it's not all good that it does. It makes a fetish of the radical egalitarianism of democracy, and subject to certain qualifications, I think that is incredibly important. But what people love, that's the sentimental side of democracy. That's what everyone thinks democracy is. And the real thing about democracy is that is Winston Churchill's point, that it's really a pretty terrible system. It's just better than all the other ones. And it is a method for making less bad decisions than any other method. So but then you can ask yourself your question, which is how do you get people to, how do you double down on the good decisions and try and minimize the number of bad decisions? Or how you use the expression smart people, which I would be happy to basically anathematize. I don't go for that term because I think Mal Meninga is as good a leader as we can think of, and he's not smart. That's not what makes him that's not what makes him a leader. So, but what I have used, and I've got a cool term for this, which is that you can think of juries, and then you can think of that mechanism of selection, which is what I call a decompetitive merit selection process. What is a decompetitive merit selection process? It's a process that selects for merit without a competition. How could that even be possible? Well, we can't even imagine it, because everywhere we go, schools, races at schools, school elections, everything is about me, 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 me. And at the South Australian Citizen Jury on nuclear energy, or rather nuclear waste, they had 340 people, and they wanted to select spokespeople because they need people from this group who are going to represent what the group thinks. And they didn't, well, these people are they are very aware, the people organising it, very aware of the problems with elections, which we have spoken around. And they, by the way, bring on that sort of rhetoric that you reacted so strongly against, because people put their own case and don't worry about the other case. They're trying to win the argument. So what would be a de-competitive merit selection process? What they did is they said, who wants to be a spokesperson? About 15 people put their hand up. They said, now point to the third person on your right. You can sit down now. That person, I may have spoken to you about this before. I'll get it out of the way quickly. The 15 people who are now effectively chosen at random, then go out of they retire from the citizen jury for a couple of hours. They spend the first hour working out the criteria according to which we should choose spokespeople, and the second hour working out who they've met in the group who meet those criteria. So nobody's competed for anything. No one's asked for anyone's vote. Nobody has.
They've set that criteria. It needs to be people who are, because everyone's smart. But we need, in this situation, for this context, we need people who are smart at this, and this, and have these personal qualities.
Correct.
And then boom. Okay, let's find those people.
Yeah. So that's but I'm only mentioning that as an instance or as a prototype, as you like, if you like, just a different way to do things. And if we built more of our elites using a mechanism like that, they'd be very different elites, because who's going to come out of that process? People you've noticed who aren't just saying me, me, me. People who you've noticed went to the trouble of including someone, said, you want this written up tonight? Look, I'll do it in my own time. Those are the people who are going to get appreciated, and people are going to say, yeah, we want more of that. So that's a way to think about some of these things. And it's easy. It's easy. It's simple, and it could have a big impact. But it's not going to take us anywhere that I can. Again, back to my point about being a pastist, not a futurist. I can't tell you exactly where it'll take us, but I like the idea that it's a richer, more generous way for human beings to collaborate together.
But it's how to get that in place. I mean, I talked about Gaddafi
you talk
nostalgia before. Gaddafi had like a really similar vision with his Green Book, of democracy that was truly representative and all that sort of thing. But he kind of didn't do that. He kind of went for the sex dungeon instead, and just kind of stay there. So that's the trick.
Well, the trick, that's right.
Well, basically, these things can't scale is the problem, I think, Nicholas. You can't have the idea of nations where you've got millions of people all under one central authority. It's a ridiculous idea. It was great. They did the experiment. We've had like a century of it. I think we need to break them up. Smaller entities we need, because you can't, all the things you're talking about, and the kind of representation you're talking about is not something that scales. You're not going to find a representative group of millions of people who are going to find the right way through and the right single path, one size fits all for everybody that's going to do the right thing. You can only do that at the regional and local level, I believe. Think about that. But that's what anarchy really is, though. That's the problem. I've got no good anarchists, as you also said at the start.
Yeah, well, you have more faith in your own ability to work out what to do than I have. All I'm trying to do is to look at a system we have and inject things into it that make sense, have an immediate legitimacy. That is, they appeal to people, they can see the logic, and then once one infuses that into the system, then it will do stuff that will give us more information about what's possible and what's not. You're completely right that there's terrible things about nations, and if you break them all up, maybe they'll all just go back to having wars against each other. We don't know. Well, I don't know. If you're if you do know, then the next task is to persuade the world that you do know, and then they'll put you in charge, and all our problems will be solved.
I seriously don't have any faith. But I mean, one thing I do know is that, you know, if everybody, or even a significant amount of people, started following what my ideas were, then like probably everybody would probably be dead on the planet within a couple of years. You know, I do know that, because you can't have like you know, it's this idea that solutions are singular, and that, you know, I don't know, these
I agree with that.
come up unilaterally from one place or one people or one person. Even worse, it's just like no, that doesn't work.
Well, yeah, but I thought you were saying that I thought you were saying that ideas begin singularly in the minds of, I'd say, at least two people.
I'm just shooting the shit with you, Nicholas. We're sitting here on the deck of the Titanic, smoking a pipe, waiting for it to sink, going, I wonder what would have been the ideal number of lifeboats. For everybody. Let's run the lifeboat thought experiment. That thought experiment. Eh?
My drug of choice is green tea, which is probably not particularly welcome on the Titanic in any way. I'm not going to be able to keep it properly level, am I?
Well, you get anything green, someone's going to assume you're Irish and bloody tell you to go downstairs where you belong.
Well, they've done statistical tests on that, and the women and children did pretty well. Certainly better than better than average. So that's a great tribute to.
That's what I always say when I don't know if you ever came across that thought experiment, the lifeboat experiment.
Not sure.
They've got a certain number of people in the water, and there's one lifeboat that can only hold a certain amount. And the thought experiment is, who do you choose to put on the lifeboat? And everyone argues about, the greatest utility to that.
It's a real
we already have every culture on the planet already got an algorithm for that. We already know what the formula is for that. It's women and children first. That's what we do. It's pretty much universal. Show me a culture that don't do that.
Well, what the interesting thing is that you can show cultures that might have said that, but the statistics from shipwrecks show that they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And of course, the people on the Titanic didn't do it at all perfectly, and some nasty things happened. But it is a great tribute. I think that the least strong people did pretty well that night. We should remember that.
We should. Every night.
See how generous I am, Tyson? What's that?
I just started singing the Titanic theme. I'm going to stop that now. Can't get enough of that movie.
Do you like it?
Oh, I think everybody likes it. Anyone who says they don't like it is full of shit.
No, I love the story of the Titanic. I just found it so ponderous. Have you watched A Night to Remember? It's a wonderful film. Well, it's made in the 50s. I think you can probably look at it on YouTube without paying anything. And it's like it might have been written for the stage, because it's these people sitting on the Titanic, and it's about an hour and a half of conversation as the whole place just falls apart. And it's brilliantly written. It's a really terrific.
Has it got Ingrid Bergman in it? Because you're always talking about her.
Oh, Ingrid Bergman. Look, sorry.
Got a thing for her.
Be still my beating heart. She of that. Speaking of the thermonuclear terms, she of the film Gaslight. But no, it doesn't have Ingrid Bergman in it. I think it's got. Oh, look.
There's our segue. No, there's your segue. Gaslighting.
All right, gaslighting.
Give us you want to get onto topics, because I'm only going to have a few minutes before I got to get out there and sort this mess out. So
it sounds like it. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's start with gaslighting.
Or we can do it next time. We can do it next time. Why don't we give people a taste?
Yeah, we could. All right, well, let's just throw those terms out there. There's gaslighting. There's triggered.
There's microaggression. Cultural appropriation. Misogynist. Safe space. Dog whistling. Mansplain. Woke. Acknowledging and on it goes. So
excellent. We don't even have to go into the rest of the.
So stay tuned.
We don't have to go through your chart, because
that is if you're still talking.
You just conveyed the entire spreadsheet with your tone at each of those.
That's right. Words. You can subject it when we next talk. You can have. You're at a university. You can subject it all to tonal analysis.
I can
and give a full and a full a full psychoanalysis of
Nicholas,
what's wrong with me.
I always triangulate. I
Yeah, you
have
do.
academic rigor over here. I would definitely try. I wouldn't just go on your tone.
Okay, fair enough.
Of your voice. I'd also have to factor in your skin tone.
Oh, of course.
And that's another data set. And yet, no,
Yeah.
I'm only joking now. That's just
Okay.
That's me being
That's
facetious.
Good. That's good.
Facetious, Nicholas.
That's good.
Hey.
All right.
Now,
Well, we've poked the bear and survived.
Yeah, but and we failed again. The idea is to try and get your subscriptions
fail
up,
again,
Nicholas, for your Substack.
Yeah, that's right. We ended up. We stayed friends.
Yeah.
We stayed friends with low subscriptions. That's the choice.
Well, let's Gam and have a fight next time. You call me something terrible.
I wouldn't dream of it. I
And
think
then
you're
afterwards,
terrific.
We'll sit somewhere in padded
if you end
leather
up
chairs and smoke cigars and drink cognac or something and just laugh like that. That's how I picture it. Although you're drinking green tea, Nicholas, I don't think
it's so nice.
I don't think you have a smoking jacket, do you? God damn it.
Well, is this a smoking jacket?
All the wrong
No, I don't have
people.
a smoking
I keep thinking
jacket.
I'm talking to influential people here.
I have a no, I'm not. I'm not influential.
Trying to get to the head of the snake.
I'm faux intellectual. I'm faux influential.
Trying to get to the head of the snake, and I'm spending too much time with you. You're like at the arse of the snake. You're in the wrong spot.
Goes round and round and round.
Yeah.
Goes round and round and
It
round.
does too. Well, let's talk about the Ouroboros next time.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
See you, Tyson. Say hello to your kids for me.
Love you, Nicholas.
See ya. Bye.
Gotcha.
Bye.